Today, we are diving deep into the power of stories. The ones that truly shape our world. We're going to journey from the very brink of a global conflict all the way to the peak of a mountain that no one has ever climbed.
So, let's just jump right into this. A sacred mountain and a massive global conflict. I mean, what could those two things possibly have in common? Well, the answer is a story, and we're about to unpack two incredibly powerful ones.
Okay, first up, we're looking at a super high-stakes standoff involving Iran. You have a nation here that's facing a monumental decision with some intense international pressure. But here's the thing, the story being told internally isn't really about politics. It's being framed as a sacred, holy struggle.
This message, which was released in Farsi, it just sets the entire tone. Khuda kafiyast. It translates to, for us, Allah is sufficient. And that's not just a phrase, it's a declaration of faith, of defiance. It signals that even when you're facing overwhelming odds, your conviction is your greatest weapon.
Now, think about this for a second. Right before making what might be the single most critical decision in his country's modern history, Iran's supreme leader goes to the Jamkhan Mosque. This is so much more than a photo op. It's a deeply symbolic act. It's designed to frame the choice that's coming, not as a political one, but as one that requires divine guidance.
And this is where you really see the narrative at work. Internally, the choice being presented is incredibly stark. There are only two ways this can end: victory or martyrdom. But notice what's missing from that list: compromise, negotiation, surrender. Nope, those options are completely off the table. It's a story of absolutes, pure and simple.
So you might be asking, what's forcing this decision? Well, it's immense external pressure. The source lays out this whole list of demands coming from the US and Israel. Shut down the nuclear program, get rid of the ballistic missiles, change the leadership, stop supporting your allies. These aren't presented as negotiations, they're framed as ultimatums, pushing that narrative toward the black and white choice between victory and martyrdom.
Okay, let's switch gears and move to our second story. We're going from the intense heat of a geopolitical conflict to the freezing, icy peaks of the Himalayas, to the mysterious and absolutely captivating Mount Kailash. And here is the big mystery. I mean, think about it. Mount Everest is over 2,000 meters taller, and it's been climbed thousands of times. So why has no one ever officially stood on the peak of Mount Kailash? The stories that try to answer that question, well, they're pretty fascinating. To get it, you first have to understand just how spiritually important this place is. For Hindus, it's literally the home of Lord Shiva. For Buddhists, it's the home of Buddha Dimchuk. For Jains, it's a site of liberation. And for followers of the Bon religion, it's the very axis that connects heaven and earth. So yeah, this isn't just a mountain. For millions of people, it is the center of the universe. And with that kind of reverence, you get some absolutely wild stories. People talk about time literally speeding up near the peak, causing you to age rapidly. Or that it's not a mountain at all, but a giant man-made pyramid built by an ancient civilization. Some stories even claim there's a mysterious, invisible force that physically pushes climbers away. All right, so we've got these two epic stories, one of a holy war, the other of a holy mountain. Now let's do what we do best and start peeling back the layers to see how these narratives actually tick.
Let's start with Mount Kailash. Remember that invisible force that supposedly pushes climbers away, giving them splitting headaches and making them confused? Well, science has a pretty clear explanation for that. It's called high-altitude sickness. Once you get above 4,000 meters, the lack of oxygen can cause those exact symptoms. It's not supernatural, it's just physiology.
And what about that perfect, almost man-made pyramid shape? It is incredible, right? But it turns out, while it's super rare, it's a totally natural geological phenomenon. During the Ice Ages, glaciers scraped away at the rock on all sides, creating this stunningly symmetrical peak. You actually see something pretty similar with the Matterhorn over in the Alps. It's a wonder of nature, not some artificial structure.
Now, let's take that same critical lens and turn it back to that conflict narrative. The story of a righteous struggle against an evil enemy. that isn't just a description of what's happening, it's a very powerful storytelling technique. It's called moral and emotional framing. It boils a super complex situation down to a simple good guys versus bad guys story, which is incredibly effective for unifying support and justifying your actions.
And that visit to the holy site to seek divine guidance? That's a classic technique called an appeal to authority. It takes a political or military decision and wraps it in a cloak of spiritual legitimacy. It makes the decision feel sacred, more profound, and a lot harder for anyone to question.
Okay, so after looking at all of this, what's the big takeaway? Why does understanding these stories actually matter?
It matters because, at the end of the day, whether we are looking at an ancient myth or a breaking news headline, stories are the primary way we make sense of the world. They give meaning to chaos, and they provide the framework for what we believe and how we act.
And you know, sometimes the truth behind the story is even more powerful than the myth. The real miracle of Mount Kailash isn't some supernatural force. It's the fact that humanity, from the world's best climbers all the way to the Chinese government, which banned climbing it back in 2001, collectively decided that some things are more important to respect than to conquer. That is a beautiful story all by itself.
Both of these narratives we looked at, one built on defiance, the other on reverence, they both shape actions and decisions that have very real consequences in the world. And that leads us to the final and most important question. What are the stories being told all around you right now, and how are they shaping your world?